Same old trouble, villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same.
Thank you, Vandello, and welcome once again to Graphically Novel. My name is Josh Wasta, a.k.a. Fallout Fury. And with me, as always, sitting here wincing, you're wincing.
Yeah, waiting.
Is my chief.
Oh,
my baby
lies. Oh, God.
My Danny the street, nay, my Danny the world. It's Bear.
Oh, Jesus. It just keeps getting worse.
I think I threw up in my mouth a little bit.
I think he threw up in my mouth a little bit. And with us, the lovely and talented, as usual, who puts up with all of our shits, Miss Jennifer Howland.
Thank you, Bear. And it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our guests. And today we are graced with the presence of Loki Lott. Thank you for being with us.
So this season we have kind of... Oh, go ahead.
Before you do this,
Oh,
I have
no,
a
no.
guest.
Oh,
I
you
also
have
have
a
a guest to introduce.
Okay.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we are also graced by the presence of Josh's liver,
Oh, this is a
which I am not a fan of.
This is a long-standing battle.
So,
Yeah.
all right, now you may continue.
Okay. So Loki, we throughout this season, we've been saying that we've hand chosen every guest, and you are the exception to that because you did reach out to me and be like, "When are you going to do Doom Patrol?" And so you were the natural choice for Doom Patrol. So here you are. While we're talking about the first season of the show and the comic by Gerard Way, who is we've also done for our Umbrella Academy episode. And somehow I never mentioned that he is also the lead singer of My Chemical Romance. Yeah, all I can
I'm
think
pretty
of.
sure you did.
All I can think of is Black Parade.
Yeah, well, you're getting there.
I was the gears were turning. But Loki, you've been a longtime listener of the show, and when we were planning on this, you said, "Hey, so what's the drink going to be?" Since we haven't released a lot of episodes, and it's not common knowledge yet that season 3 was the only season that we were doing themed drinks. And I said, "You know what, man? You can come up with a Doom Patrol drink." So in front of my co-hosts is just a pint glass with some, it almost looks like beer. It's got the perfect like golden hue to it. So everyone, let's raise a glass, take a drink, and then Loki will tell us what we are drinking.
I'm even solo cupping it.
Oh,
Ooh.
solo
Sweet.
cup.
Nice. All right.
Nothing but class.
That's very smooth, very nice. Bear with your taste buds. You want to take a guess?
Well, you already told me there's ginger beer in that.
Yep.
There's some kind of...
Bourbon?
That's
It's
two.
sweet enough to be bourbon.
Yeah.
I was like, it's not Irish. It's got to be bourbon.
And there's something else sweet in there.
Honey?
Loki, you want to tell them what it is?
It's vodka.
Oh, I should have guessed. I should have known. Loki's poison of choice.
Okay.
Except he orders his from Russia.
Well, I do appreciate the bourbon,
Yay.
as is my poison of choice.
Oh, is that okay?
Right. Well, and we don't have bad bourbon in this house. So you were like, you were saying that you were apologizing for using a really good bourbon. I'm like, I have no choice but to use a really good bourbon. So,
Yeah, I guess we can't drop names, but it's a.
oh, you can drop it. It's fine.
I'm using Maker's Mark,
Nice.
which
Yeah.
people will be like, "Oh my God, you used to mix that with."
I used Elijah Craig. So,
that is my mixing whiskey.
Yeah, that's a good mixing.
mixing
Mixing.
with the rag in the basket.
Yeah.
Put the rag in the basket. Give me the basket.
Give me the basket. So Loki, every guest that we have on the show, we ask them a little bit about their history with comic books, comic book media, the whole thing. So why don't you give us your breakdown of how you got into comics, what your favorites are, the whole 9 yards.
I guess the biggest influence I've had in comics was from a friend in high school who collected X-Men comics and got me into reading those. I'm older, so this is during the mid to late 80s. And so X-Men, Excalibur, I got into like Tick, which was a fantastic series.
Yeah, one that we haven't even written down, have we?
Yeah, we do.
I think it's on our master
Okay.
list.
I think we were thinking about doing it for the next season, and then we were like, we can't use up
Just
all
do
of our
All of
yeah,
the stuff that we
yeah.
really, really want to do.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Ninja Turtles, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac,
Ninja Turtles.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Nice.
So, and then manga, different anime.
Nice.
So
Very cool.
pretty much across the board. on what I like and don't like.
Well, you're also an artist yourself, so
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of the more visual aesthetic of the medium would appeal to you.
Yeah, it's weird on the artwork, and I'll get into the artwork for Doom Patrol.
Right.
'cause some of that was kind of bizarre and cool all at the same time, and kind of retro.
Well, so let's jump into it. So Doom Patrol, originally on the DC universe streaming channel that has now been folded into HBO Max. I actually had DC Universe and really enjoyed it. I enjoyed Titans. I enjoyed Doom Patrol. Obviously the Harley Quinn cartoon is freaking amazing.
I have to say this show is probably the most entertaining DC show I've probably ever seen since like the Christopher Reeve Superman movies.
Wow, really? Okay, nice.
I would have to say this show, starting off from the beginning, because I didn't read the comic beforehand. Obviously didn't read the comic beforehand. Started watching the show, had no idea going in on what it was about or anything, and I was just sitting going, what the fuck is going on? It was a complete fucking just random shit show all at once.
And then you read the comic.
And then the comic was just like, you think that's a shit show? Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hold my ginger beer mixed with bourbon and vodka.
I should point out that for those people that are listening out there, I haven't actually watched hardly any of the Batman animated series, so that could color your opinion of me.
Right, right, yeah. I would put probably, just for me, because I like that aesthetic, but I would probably put the Harley Quinn cartoon just slightly above Doom Patrol when it comes to the DC stuff. But Doom Patrol is up there. Like,
Doom Patrol's good stuff.
We were talking last night about how we don't know how the first season got on Bear's Voodoo account, since I've always had DC Universe, so I had it available to stream. But we finished it on the Voodoo, and then I immediately was like, well, you guys know the second season is sitting on HBO Max, and Jen was like, good.
I immediately started tapping my arm.
Settle down, junkie, you'll get your fix.
Right? Yeah, to the point that today when I hit the store, I'm like, 2 bottles of Prosecco, because we're going to be watching more Doom Patrol later, which is probably kind of a spoiler. We will be watching the show continuously. So I describe this as a combination of Legion meets Legends of Tomorrow, and the reason that I do that is on our Legion episode we talked about Jen loves Legion.
I love Legion.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Legion
just a little bit too much outside for me. And I, because Constantine joined Legends of Tomorrow, quickly caught up with Legends of Tomorrow because I love Matt Ryan. That is too much for Jen.
I might be okay with it if it weren't a CW show.
Right. On top of everything.
On top of everything else.
Doom Patrol is probably, I would put it in the middle of those two extremes.
Except for the fact that Legends of Tomorrow, there's one character I like. One.
Which one?
John Constantine.
Constantine. Yeah.
The only one.
Yeah.
Again, that's why I'm saying it's in the middle. And Legion, I'm like, all right, so Aubrey
you like
Plaza,
those characters though.
Some of them.
Okay.
Some of them.
Okay.
It got real weird.
Well, so I think that's interesting that you think Legion was too weird for you, but a show that had an entire plot point where the entire cast was sucked up a donkey's butt is okay. And then
you got to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah, and animal, vegetable, mineral man, but Legion was too weird for you.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Animal, vegetable, mineral man was hilarious.
He was hilarious. I'm not saying that I love Doom Patrol.
I think it's the wackiness. I think it's if you're going to, because Legends of Tomorrow is the same way. If you're gonna put something that mind bending is not the right term, but do you know what I mean? If you're gonna put something that weird and hard to follow, Happy is a great example too. Mm-hmm. Any show that has a cartoon horse, and you're going through all this mega violence and things, but at the end of the day, it's wacky. It's got a wacky aspect. Legion didn't have anything that I would describe as
right.
wacky.
Legion could happen.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Air quotes.
Big air quotes.
Yeah, right.
Big air quotes. But there was nothing like out of
fantastical.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess when I get to that point of weird, I need it to at least be a little fantastical.
I'm right here.
I know. You are fantastical.
That's right.
I think we discussed yesterday that you are all the weird you take up most of my weird filter.
Yeah.
I pity her.
So, before I get into certain things, Loki, you had questions that you ran past me before the episode. Oh, wait, sorry.
He hasn't been on the show before, so aren't you?
We just did the
We
thing.
did
Sorry.
We did that part.
I was thinking about something, evidently.
So, hit us with your questions.
I was going to ask you, what character did you like the most, and what was like your least liked character out of like the whole show?
Okay. I will go first because you've run this past me, before.
Oh, it's easy for me.
But we actually discussed our favorite characters while we were watching yesterday. If we're including side characters, my favorite character is Danny the Street. I love how they did Danny.
Mm-hmm.
I loved everything about it. And at the end, like, I actually believe that Danny the Street was a character so much that I looked up on IMDb who played Danny the Street and realized that Danny never talked.
Mm-hmm.
So the CGI developers played Danny the Street. But if we're talking just the main cast, I'm gonna go with Jane. Jane's episode was a highlight for me in the first season. I loved it. I kind of wish she was in more of the actual comic that we read, but I really like that character. Which again, going back and talking about something like Legion, it's more interactive for me because Legion does some sorts of things that are similar in the comic.
I feel like what you didn't like about Legion is you couldn't tell what was what.
Probably.
And in Doom Patrol, when you're in Jane's mind, like when Jane is a different character, you know she's a different character.
And that actress, by the way, facial expressions,
Mm-hmm.
the way she walks. I mean, even
her range is amazing.
Her range is mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. But when you're
talking about Diane Guerrero.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in the underground, the episode where Cliff goes into her head,
all of those actresses.
And all of those actresses
freaking amazing.
Had to have learned that when Jane had portrayed them earlier in the series, that there were certain
like facial tics.
Yeah.
Ways,
oh my God.
Mannerisms, ways of walking. Yeah, they did. The director did a fantastic job.
And the actor that played Hammerhead.
Mm-hmm. Actress.
Yeah.
Actress.
Yes.
Well,
actor.
Actor. That played Hammerhead.
Yeah.
Damn, like, she shows up on the screen, you're like, that's fucking Hammerhead.
Yeah.
You don't even have to guess.
Yeah.
You know who these people are.
Yeah,
So,
the
yeah.
way she held herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You could just feel like she had that presence of, you're ready to kick some ass.
Does anybody else really, really, really see the nun and what's going on with
with the
nun?
chainsaw?
Yes,
yeah.
the nun with a chainsaw.
Yeah, that'd be fun to see pop up.
Yeah.
And just for a second.
Right. So anyway, yeah, that's my two favorites. I think we're all gonna have, well, at least Jen and I are gonna have the least favorite. Cyborg was just
Oh, you mean Robo Boy?
Yes, we'll go. Jen, episode 8, turned to me and goes, "What's his name again?" And I'm like, he's literally the most popular DC character.
And he's like, who? Who are you talking about? I'm like, Robo Boy. And isn't that his name?
And it was like, Jen, when you're half man, half robot, what do they call that?
RoboCop. Oh wait.
No, that's Cliff.
Yeah,
Cliff has the same amount of meat in him that RoboCop did.
But yeah, it was and I get why he is milquetoast and why he is the way that he is, because Cyborg is in Doom Patrol to show you what the quote unquote real superheroes do, what a real superhero would do in this situation. And in Doom Patrol, that is fuck everything up, because
what is that? Be crippled by your personal storyline and your teenage meat brain. Come on. It was the CW element of, DC creeping in. And it's like, dude, I don't care about your relationship with your father. Suck it up.
I love my mind.
Get back.
I just heard teenage meat brain.
But seriously, I mean, he behaves as though his story is so tragic and everyone else there has no idea what tragedy is.
Oh my God, you don't understand. Well, no. Like,
right?
Most of my family died in a car crash.
It's like every single character on that show had serious fucking trauma in their lives.
My biggest problem with Cyborg is I have a hard time separating him from watching the Teen Titans cartoon.
Yeah.
Well, and in Titans that they did did on DC Universe, Doom Patrol was originally a backdoor pilot that was one of the episodes for Titans, where Beast Boy shows up for a while in the mansion, and that was their introduction. You have not watched Titans. But I mean, that also was pretty cool because Beast Boy was a member of Doom Patrol for a while in the comics.
Why didn't they have Beast Boy?
Cyborg was also a member of Doom Patrol for a while in the comics.
Okay, because in the animated series, Beast Boy was fantastic.
Yeah.
Why didn't we have him? We could have Raven. Come on.
Okay, once again, I'm going to say that you should watch Titans, but
I've watched a couple episodes.
Yeah, you did. When
I think Raven would be too competent to be in Doom Patrol.
Okay, fair.
Also true. That's the thing is these are the fuck ups.
Yeah, but see, I was thinking Raven from the animated series, but even there, she's too competent for Doom Patrol.
And if you're going to have Beast Boy and Cyborg and Raven show up, then fucking Starfire's going to show up soon. And
no, I just want one. I want Beast Boy
Starfire.
or Raven. Robo Boy can go home and stay home with Daddy.
So, question goes to you, Jen.
Okay. My favorite character, and Danny the Street, freaking amazing. Love the genderqueer sentient area. It's fantastic. But actual character, I think that I want to go with, and this is going to be a surprise, Larry Traynor.
Really?
Because of his growth throughout the first season. Like, coming to terms with his sexuality, coming to terms with his condition, coming to terms with the negative spirit. I just felt like that was, and we kind of saw that in the comic, where like he accepted where he was and where he was, who he was at that point in time.
You get to literally watch him make the choices
exactly
of whether or not he's going to continue on with this in his life.
And in the show, I feel like, in the beginning you're like, stop being such a whiny bitch. Right. What are you bringing to the table? But by the end of the first series, I was like, damn, all right, this dude can stay. I like him. And obviously Robo Boy, don't like him. Yeah, he can go away.
Fair.
God, it was really tough. There are so many absolutely great characters in this. Like Alan Tudyk did a wonderful job the whole time, even though he's only there as narrator for most of it.
Beard Hunter.
Right? The Beard Hunter. Like, seriously, the Beard Hunter is like, if I ever get back into a White Wolf Mage game, like that is going to be my
bear.
That is going to be my paradigm.
Yes.
Oh God.
I love it.
My paradigm is Beard Hunter. I can track anyone through their beard.
Life correspondence rhyme.
Yeah, probably.
Yep.
A little bit of matter.
A little bit of matter because you're dealing with it once it's gone from their body.
Yeah.
But the just the number of characters that they had that were so brilliant. Like even towards the end, like you finally like Robo Boy Cyborg finally becomes a sympathetic character in the last 2 episodes where you see him almost kill his father.
Yeah.
And now you're finally like, oh, here, some real growth, something you really want to cry about.
Right.
Something.
And maybe you're going to develop as much as the other characters have.
Yeah.
Maybe.
If I get a pick, it's like a hard toss up for me between as my favorite between Alan Tudyk, Mr. Nobody, and Flex Mentala.
Oh yeah.
Because how do you not love a guy that can accidentally flex the wrong muscle
and give everyone an orgasm?
Power word orgasm, 100-foot radius.
Yeah.
So it's a toss up between those two.
Do you think that we're gonna see more of him in the next season of the TV
judging
show?
By what we saw in the comic, I would think we're going to see more of him.
I think so too, but if only because he can communicate directly with the negative spirit.
The negative spirit, yeah.
Also, did you see in IMDb that the negative spirit actually, there's an actor?
Yeah, there was an actor
that plays the negative spirit.
Yeah, it was. I was just actually looking at that before we started. It was Matthew Zuck.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if the negative spirit is actually going to speak in the future season. Anyway, can you tell I like this?
So that's probably my favorite character. Obviously, least favorite. I don't think any of us really cared for Cyborg much, but I was really kind of on the fence about Rita as well up until the very end.
Again, great character growth and development.
Yeah, but it took a while really for her character growth to kind of spin up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'd probably go with her as my least favorite character.
So Loki, what was yours?
I would have to go with as a favorite I mean, Danny the Street was fantastic. I mean, that's an amazing character, and I love the concept and the inclusiveness. But as a main character, I would have to go with Jane because I love the different aspects of her. And obviously we haven't seen all of them portrayed out on the screen, but the episode with the underground was so interesting.
Yeah.
And you got to see, just the different little things on, this this person is the one that takes care of this particular action of what happens, and then this character comes up with the lies, and this character, deals with the psychological aspects of everything. And I thought that was pretty interesting, having different characters come in that take care of what needs to be done, all to protect Kay.
Well, and when we did our episode on New Mutants with Leah Cameron, she pointed out that in New Mutants, Ileana's storyline was a really kind of awesome portrayal of abuse, especially as a child. Mm-hmm. I would say the same thing about this, because you never really everything is suggested, but you know exactly what's happening, to the point that any time there is even a whisper of sweet baby, you're like, fuck you, dude. Like, you're so angry all of a sudden and on edge.
Well, and in talking about Jane, the difference between the TV series and the comic, and spoilers for the comic, I don't want to go too far. There is a personality that is described as the uber and the dangerous one, who actually was quite helpful in the TV series.
Right. Well, and maybe that will be a shift. Maybe they were, because I could see how that personality could go bad.
Well, mainly because that personality is, I guess I'm totally spoiling it. Yeah. Okay, so Dr. Harrison is probably the most powerful aspect of Jane. Mm-hmm. I mean, as far as like mutant abilities.
I would argue it's her or Karen.
I was going to say Karen would be the other one.
Right. Okay.
To just be able to look at somebody and suddenly like mind fuck them.
But both of them relied on the person being able to hear her.
Yes.
Right. That's true.
Understandable. Yep.
Which I found pretty interesting too. Also, Karen, that was hysterical.
Yes. Just she's named Karen. Yeah.
But the episode that had the doctor where they in the TV show where they went back in time and, had her manipulate things I forgot who they were fighting against. It was
the Decreator.
The Decreator.
And they had her make the Recreator. Yeah.
So, obviously she holds a lot of sway and her power is pretty immense. But I'm still kind of surprised that she could be manipulated by Mr. Nobody that much to have this happen, where I think she would have, as a character that strong, could have just been like, well, fuck it,
Right, let the world burn.
Yeah. Well, and that actually brings up, before you get to your least favorite character, Josh and Bear have issues with time travel. How did you feel about the time travel aspect in this show?
Considering that they really only lumped it into like a single, was it 1 or 2 episodes? I think it was just the one episode.
It's just the one. I mean, they've done stuff in flashbacks, but they haven't actually time traveled.
It's when you start doing these long ranging or trying to basically like rewrite stuff from
story arcs.
From way earlier in the season or like previous seasons, and now you're going to just say, oh well, if we just put in this little bit of time travel, we can retcon all this stuff. And I'm just like,
see, my issue with time travel is a little different than Bear's. My issue is, and it kind of fits in there. My issue is, if you're going to show me time travel, it needs to be a much longer story. That needs to be a focus, because you need to show me how you fucked up. Because anything you do in time travel, and The Flash is such a great example of this. By season 3, every time Barry's like, oh, I'm just going to go back in time, you're like, this is what the rest of this season's going to be about, Barry, because you're a fucking idiot. Because you don't understand that you can't go back and just change one thing, because that will just spiral. Right. But yeah, so that's so Loki, your least favorite.
I would have to go with Cyborg.
Kind of unanimous there.
Yeah. But he seems like he's the least, he's fucked up in his own way, but not compared to the other characters. I mean, the other characters are fuck-ups. Niles Calder is horrific about what he did to everybody to get them to this point.
Just so he can get that sweet, sweet cave poo-tang.
Oh, God. That was horrible.
So listen, Eldon Sherman Hayes Jr., if you are out there in the cyberverse somewhere and you come across this episode and you are curious at all about what we're talking about, I just want you to know that I have now seen a visual depiction of caveman style, and I was disturbed on a very like a level of I really can't even talk about it.
Ooga chaka, ooga chaka, ooga.
It was a catchphrase that he used to use back in the day,
style,
back when we were, still working at the Hilltop and bartending. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'd hit that caveman style." And I'm just like, "I'm not entirely sure you understand what that entails. And if you watch this, you will see what that entails."
But I mean, it seems like all the other characters have had character developments except for Cyborg. I mean, he's had a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, the other characters, you actually, all right, they were pieces of shit before.
Right.
Something shitty happened to them. They were pieces of shit afterwards with powers.
Yep.
But they're slowly becoming better.
Right.
Well, and for somebody that their arc was tied directly into the main story, you look at all these other characters that their growth is just a byproduct of what they're going through and then working on themselves. Cyborg is kind of drug along the way because all of his development and backstory are tied directly into Niles Calder and the whole main storyline. And then it ends up just being, well, get along with my dad now.
Well, but I have to say, not in Robo-Boy's defense, but the character was necessary for the season 1 arc because the group was not a team.
Right.
They kind of work together by proximity, but because of Cyborg pushing them to in very many ways that failed spectacularly, it made them realize how much they actually did care about each other and how much they really could gel as a team and work together.
How much they could actually do when they did get together.
Exactly. But that also involved them embracing who they were.
Right.
And what their ability was.
Well, and even by the end, though, they're still kind of grabbing the wrong cues from each other. Because, I think about when Niles calls everybody back and he's like, you have to save Danny, you have to save my daughter. And the first person to be like, no, go fuck yourself is Cliff.
Yeah.
And then it's only when everyone else is like, we're going in. And that speech from Cliff of, okay, I guess I'm the asshole, which means I'm the asshole. It's going into the fucking painting. like that whole part was so perfect because Cliff was before Cyborg was kind of, if there was a leader, it would have been Cliff. He was the only one that trying to pull everybody together and whatever.
Yeah.
And so for him to be like, no, fuck it. Right, guys? And everybody else being like, actually, we're going to go into the painting. And he's like, fuck, fine. Because the only people I give a fuck about in this world other than my daughter are going into the painting. Right. So I'm going into the painting.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was originally the only one when the city was being torn up in the first couple episodes by the donkey donkey portal.
When we get introduced to Cyborg.
Right.
Yeah. He was the only one that was like, I'm going to stay and fight this. And everybody else is just kind of like, fuck it.
Bye.
Other than Jane, who went after Niles.
Right.
In the portal. But the rest of them were just kind of like, I don't want a piece of this shit.
Right. Well, and so I had forgotten about that part. So that's awesome to see that flip, by the end of the series. And while we're on the subject, because we haven't brought up Cliff, Brendan fucking Fraser.
Just seeing him back and working again does my heart good.
Yeah. It makes me want to watch all the Mummy movies again.
Screw that. Encino Man.
Encino Man.
El queso es verde and viejo.
Wheezing the juice.
And we all dated ourselves right there.
Right. Yeah.
Yep, sure did.
Do not wheeze the juice.
No more wheezing the juice, Mr. Stoney.
How much time for the burrito? 2 minutes.
2 minutes only.
It's frozen. It's warm on the outside and frozen on the inside.
Well, and I have to say there was a complete segue here, but I don't even know if they're the original Doom Patrol, but the retirement home for Doom Patrol.
Funny enough, I looked that up. Doom Patrol started in 1963.
Yeah.
And those people were never.
Okay. But the thing that I'm most interested in is the caretaker, because he
Joshua?
said he also had powers, and it was never really clear what his powers were.
Right.
And the only time that you saw something coming close to powers is when he and Jane went to punch each other and their fists just stopped right in front of each other.
Yeah.
And then there was like a seismic. But I was like, okay, Joshua can come back. We want to see what he does.
Yeah, absolutely.
I made the mistake of, when I was watching the show, to look up characters on Wikipedia, like what their powers were, since I didn't know much about the characters, and I actually got a spoiler, like a season 2 spoiler from Wikipedia under the powers, and I'm just like, son of a bitch. So I actually stopped looking up other people and stopped looking up the powers because I wanted to be surprised throughout the TV show.
The only one I got spoiled on was animal, vegetable, mineral. Because I was like, he shows up in the episode where they're at the institute to get powers, and he shows up and he gives his name, and I'm like, oh, he's got to be somebody in DC. And I typed it in, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that's a pretty good story arc too.
Yeah, where you just keep watching him in courtroom and in security videos, being
and
the world's worst supervillain.
And he wouldn't give up the other the dinosaur head.
Yeah.
Right.
Or, he wouldn't snitch on him.
Right.
Right, even though the dinosaur head keeps attacking him.
Yep.
Oh my God. That was hilarious.
He's going to be fine, though. He was just shot in the minerals.
So I brought up that Doom Patrol started in 1963. It was the first DC team that argued with each other. And they were literally formed as a response to the X-Men.
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting. Well, and I'm glad that you kind of brought that around, because I really want to talk about the comic. I really liked it. And I'm not surprised.
I told you that last night. Like, you're gonna love
I'm
this
not
damn
surprised
comic.
because I love Umbrella Academy. I am surprised that Gerard Way, because Umbrella Academy, the comics for Umbrella Academy, I felt were not fully fleshed.
Right.
And so I was a little concerned about this comic, because I just felt like the bones were there for Umbrella Academy, and the TV show did a much better job of fleshing out those characters and making them whatever. But Doom Patrol, I think Gerard found his stride. I really do. And if you read the backward instead of the forward, he wrote a note on the back. He said that it was just a punk rock splendor party. Like, he just really enjoyed immersing himself in writing this, and you can tell.
Yeah. Well, he was a huge fan of Doom Patrol.
Right. But he also talked about how he
made me want to eat burritos.
It made me want to eat gyros at the beginning.
Yes, I'm sorry, that's what it was, gyros.
He talked about how he avoided social media when he was writing, because he felt like he needed to hear the voices from inside. Like, we're talking about some pretty heavy therapy
That's
things.
some Randy Orton shit.
He wanted to hear the voices inside rather than being influenced from outside voices, like other people's random thoughts.
I want to listen to my own crazy,
right.
Not everyone else's crazy.
But then he also talked about not wanting to read reviews or critics' thoughts on his work, except for there was one that said, and I should pull it, there was a reviewer that said, I can't review this accurately. I'm not smart enough.
Wow.
And Gerard Way goes on to say, obviously, in the other points that he made, he was extremely intelligent and absolutely was smart enough to review this, but appreciated what the guy had to say in his review. So I thought that was really interesting. But I also found, like, my favorite epitaph to say now from this comic, roller skating mother of pearl.
I thought it was no plan, just evil.
That was good too. Well, you heard me say
what
that.
Is your plan? No, wait, when I got to that, what is your plan? No plan, just evil.
Yeah. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about, was comparing it to Legion.
Right.
I think that the comic actually is closer to Legion
I
than
agree.
the show.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And then I had a couple of questions, like, where was Casey in the TV show?
Well, it's not included, although maybe later, because now you have a fully... Okay, that is spoilers for the comics, so we're not going to get into that.
Okay.
But before we get to the rest of your questions, I want to make sure to ask Loki and Bear what they thought of the comic book itself.
I actually like the comic, other than the moments where they're talking about, you're following the story, and it's not a spoiler that, the TV show jumps around quite a lot.
Yep.
And the comic is no different. And you'll be reading about one character, and then all of a sudden the next page will be, look at this character and what they're doing, which has nothing to do with what you were just reading, 6 pages about. And you're kind of like, what the fuck? And then it'll jump back like nothing happened.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was kind of like, what? Throughout the reading the comic. And then I was kind of surprised, the first 100 pages, it's kind of like, what? And then it just starts gelling together, much like the TV show did.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, holy shit. Okay, now it's actually starting to make sense. Is there something wrong with me now?
Well, at one point, I looked at Jen while we were reading this, and I was just like, okay, this is just one of those things that I just need to let my brain go. I just need to absorb what's on the page, not process really, too much, not start, because I get very into... I can understand how this would be difficult to review, like you were saying, because you need to, at least your first read through, you just need to catalog what's on the page. You can't analyze what's on the page. You just have to go through and be like, okay, cool. Yeah, let it happen to you. But yeah, I agree with that, Loki. That's a really good point.
I did enjoy the different art styles that were in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have your initial art style, and then when you're reading the comic book from, I don't want to do a spoiler.
Danny's comic.
When you're reading Danny's comic, it actually looks like a 1950s comic.
Yeah.
It's got the printing dots, it's even the drawing style is different. I think it was really well done. And then you've got like now I'm blanking on his name with the gyro, 50 different tomato things.
Sam,
yeah.
Well, no, when you have the gyro and it's different shades, the Andy Warhol-ish type.
Oh, right. Yeah. The pop art. Yeah.
Pop art. There was some like a Salvador Dali-esque type drawing in there. I mean, it was just like, wow, I think these guys actually know, the art styles also, and did a very good job of emulating them, and just kind of, but I mean, also adding in shit that just kind of keeps you not, it keeps you on your toes. It keeps, you're always on that uneasy, because you're never knowing what art style or what the story actually totally is.
You're never entirely comfortable.
Yeah, and I think that kind of adds to it.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think that the different art styles were used as part of the storytelling. It was like they used the different art styles to kind of give you clues to where you were in the story.
They were also reflected in the show, because you see Danny the Streets, a lot of different interpretations and things. In the comic book, they do that with art style.
Yes.
That you can tell the attitude, the what Danny's going through the art style there. In the TV show, it was all weather and set and,
lighting.
All of that was done. So it's why I really fucking love Danny the Street as a character, because you can use those things, like whether or not it's changing an art style. You can have two panels that are exactly the same except for whatever the art style is. Same colors, same lighting, same everything, but one of them will convey a different message. And then you look at the medium of television, and they did the same thing, because after the first meeting that, Danny, the sentient being, controls all of that. So expresses itself through.
Well, they also used a different place in the TV series, because the negative spirit would take Larry into his memories.
Yeah.
And that was always done in this really, like, similar to the Karen episodes. It was done in this very, The Notebook. Like the lighting is soft and glowy, and so you knew you were in a memory. You knew what was happening. But I liked when Larry finally confronted the negative spirit, saying, "I don't know what you think you're doing," and the negative spirit used John to talk back to him.
Yeah.
Like when that happened, I was like, oh, yes, they're communicating. And
Finally.
then they weren't communicating.
Well, and then you find out that it was John, that the negative spirit was pulling John's essence into those dreams.
Right. Yeah.
And so John was actually experiencing it with Larry, and I'm like, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, Loki, I pulled aside from your...
Oh, no. I did like that as well. But it seems like the character, the Larry Traynor in the comic book, was a lot more aware of what was going on in Control versus the one in the TV show, who was kind of fucking clueless about the negative spirit until, just now. So 70 years later, you're finally going to start talking to this, as opposed to, kind of getting on top of your shit quicker.
Right. Well, I mean, he was in so much denial about so many different aspects of his life that didn't even involve him living 70 years past when he should have been dead and having a negative spirit inside of him.
Sure.
So, I mean, I can understand that. You're talking about a man from the...
Well, also in the TV series, you go where you're learning about him through flashbacks. But when you're talking about a character and character development, nothing's happened until the show starts.
Right.
In the comic book, Larry Traynor has been around since 1963.
Right.
Because he was one of the original Doom Patrol members.
Right.
So he's had, at that point, 45 years worth of character development.
Right.
Well, and we also have... This comic book takes place obviously after, because this is everybody getting together, and the comic book takes place after they are already together as a team.
Right. Yep. I want to say this was definitely post New 52. I didn't look up because they talk about what their last adventure was, but I think there was a 5-year gap between Doom Patrol runs. So they're all talking about whatever their last mission was, that then Gerard Way had to work those elements in. That's the other thing.
Right.
Is at one point, Jen, you were like, I have no idea how they got the first season from this.
Right.
But this, what we read, was the newest introduction, to Doom Patrol.
From the old runs.
From all of the old runs, because
Right.
DC tends to reboot a lot more often than Marvel.
Yeah.
So you don't have all that history, but Gerard Way was the person that DC said, okay, anytime there's a number one, you have not only the duty of bringing people in and being like, this is your base set, but also introducing elements of a however many decades long history. Like if there was ever like a Superman number one now, I had no idea. Like I have no idea how that writer doesn't just drown in their own tears and sweat, because you have to, not only, the idea is if nobody's ever heard of Superman somehow and they pick this up, you have to introduce all of the concepts that are Superman, but you also have to go all the way back to like 1932
and and introduce everything from there, or at least acknowledge it at some point in the comic.
Well, and create that world and all of that.
And in that case, this did a fantastic job.
It did. And I feel like, spoilers again for the comic, but Danny plays a much larger role in the comic, a much larger role. And Niles, the chief, plays a much smaller role. In fact, he's not really interacting with the characters at all. It's kind of like...
you only see it through flashbacks.
Yeah, well, it's not even flashbacks. It's like...
What's going on with Niles Calder?
What's going on with Niles Calder? And what it really reminded me of? So, do you remember the show Kids in the Hall?
Oh, yeah.
And those little in-between segments where it was like the kid running around in the woods and she was saying, do you know? Or did you know?
Did you know?
Did you know?
Oh,
that's what I like. That's what immediately came to my mind.
Yeah. Or SNL's Jack Handy, inspirational quotes.
Right. Like just these little things that got slid in between whatever. And
palate cleansers almost.
Yeah. And they had nothing to do with anything before or after, but they were entertaining.
Yeah. The ones of those that were always my favorite was The State, because The State had Old Fashioned Guy, which was just Tom Lennon, like whittling some wood next to a lake. And he'd be like, call me old fashioned, but I believe fire's magic. It scares me. And that was it. That was that 15 seconds was like your entire sketch.
And that's what
and what's
going on with Niles Calder in this comic. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think there's some foreshadowing in the comic. I thought this comic was kind of before the TV in spots. Like it jumps around in the TV show.
Yeah.
You know, time wise, because you have like the candlemaker, you know, in one spot. You know, you have different things that have been in the TV show that, you know, were alluded to.
Right.
But also you see, you know, like you said, they are a well-gelled team.
Right. Well, I mean, as gelled as the Doom Patrol get, really.
Ever, yeah. But I did like some of the background by Danny Comics. You know, you have them making fun of, you know, like Spider Dan, like the poster on the comic thing. You know, the Danny Man with, you know, the Superman. You know, I thought that was kind of funny, and I was
I love
Danny
all
Man.
that.
I expected, like, you know, the Superman ones, but like the Spider Man for a while was just like, oh, really? Okay, that's rather funny that they kind of throw that out there, being a DC comic.
As we keep doing these, we do find that there's a lot of that back and forth. Superman is referenced in the Marvel Universe as a comic book a lot.
I was just watching Black Lightning the other day, and they made Superman references. Of course, they also made Crisis on Infinite Earth references, but
right. Well, they're in DC. Yeah. So how's that gone post Crisis?
Thankfully, it was only the one episode.
Okay.
And it actually didn't
affect anything.
It didn't really utilize like a mess of the Crisis. They basically just used that as a point to further plot with one of the characters.
Oh, good. I'm always curious about that.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
One thing I was kind of laughing about in the comic is the Furby with the cassette tape.
Yeah, I had a note.
The Furby
in my
Teddy
notes.
Ruxpin?
The organic Teddy Ruxpin.
Yeah, where I was like, how many people that aren't, 40 years old and older aren't
baby,
even going to understand what the hell that is?
The baby Cthulhu Teddy Ruxpin?
Kind of.
Yeah. But I mean, like the cassette tape.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I mean, there's
and
a
then
certain age where you have no idea what this is.
Gross, slimy shit that came out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll let our readers see that.
Yeah.
our listeners see that. When
I was
read
amused by that because the design of that toy, just in general, ties into Legends of Tomorrow in a huge way. So
stop pushing Legends of Tomorrow on me.
I'm just saying.
No means no, Josh.
It's a comic. It was a comic first. It'll happen. Ooh, those are dangerous eyes. Okay, so in order to make my wife's mood better, because I like it when she's smiling instead, I did catch one other thing that I'm wondering if somehow it was a nod to, because I'd love it, and that was Sam in the comic is a ambulance in the EMT, and a couple times he mentions that he only goes where the universe takes him. So I wonder, is Sam a holistic EMT?
Oh, I kind of like that.
If our listeners have never watched Dirk Gently, the holistic detective, it's amazing. But it's also literally people who have given their lives over to the holistic way of living, which is whatever their profession is, and the universe will send me places and places to me.
Yes, when I need to be there.
Right. Kind of like the issue lifestyle for those changeling players.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's he said it the first time. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then he literally said it while they were going through Danny, and I'm like, that seems like something a holistic EMT would say.
Okay, I'm not going to say why, but he's not wrong, because he was in the right place at the right time.
It's true. He might be a holistic EMT is all I'm saying.
Yep. I like it.
And Gerard Way seems like the kind of person that would freaking love Dirk Gently.
Having never seen it, or I mean, not seen it, but I've never read that. That was, who wrote that?
Who wrote Dirk Gently?
Yeah.
Okay.
Josh is looking it up. I don't remember. All I know is that the author passed away, so there won't be any more, which is sad. And it was a TV show, Loki, and
Douglas Adams wrote Dirk Gently.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I couldn't think of it, and I was thinking Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yep.
It was Douglas Adams.
I couldn't pull the name.
Yep. But if you have not watched the TV show, it's a high recommend. It's really, really well done. Anyway.
What did you guys think of the way that like Mr. Nobody got his powers?
I was amused that, you know, he wasn't going to even, the reason why he had to go and get his powers was because he got turned down over Grodd.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't actually Grodd.
was...
Look that up too.
Yeah.
It's a different super intelligent gorilla from the 60s.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's not the one from Flash?
No, it's not Grodd. Grodd was
Sad.
later. This is the predecessor to Grodd.
Oh boy.
Do you mean how he got his powers, why he got his powers, or the episode that you find out how he got his powers? Because all of those have,
where you find out
the puppet episode. The puppet episode was fantastic.
The puppet show was hilarious and horrible all at the same time.
I mean, how do you not love a bunch of mindless drones and lederhosen wandering around?
Well, and I mean, my dad, and I'm trying to avoid the joke of when I was a young boy, my father. But my dad, whenever we were going on road trips or whatever, he was the guy that wanted to see like the gigantic ball of twine and like all of those things. Like he was the guy that's like, okay, well, we could stop or we could look at this thing as long as it's on the way. And you'd be surprised how many of those fucking puppet shows are on all of those weird stands. Like sometime around the 60s and 70s, there was some company that was like, tell us your company's history or tell us the history or whatever, and we'll make this automatic puppet show. And I mean, they're all gone now. The House on the Rock is the only place that I can think of that you can see a lot of those anymore. But they used to have like 80s and 90s. They used to be everywhere. But only in these side of the road, broken down.
But they were from the 70s, weren't they? Or were the 80s? They would have been from the 80s.
Right. And I mean, you know, they were everywhere. So like, I super enjoyed it because I can sit and watch that all day because I have very fond memories as a kid of those. And when we went to House on the Rock, like I was like, they give you a certain amount of
house.
Yes, your house. When we went to House on the Rock and they gave us a certain amount of tokens, and I was like, I need more tokens. I need to watch all of these.
Yeah, when we walked out, we had one.
Yes, that we kept as a souvenir.
That I kept.
Yeah. Well, we bought more.
Yeah.
Having the puppet show going on, and then having the old Nazi who's being kept alive because someone's turning a crank so he can breathe was just like so ridiculously over the top.
Yeah, yeah.
And pretty much right on point for everything else in this show.
Right. Oh,
right.
Yeah.
But I mean, they made the Nazis like so ridiculously funny.
Well, and that's the thing is it. Okay, now we're gonna get into our main aside. Humor in the face of like horrificness. Because you look at that and I think of like that episode and I think of Jojo Rabbit that came out recently. And if you haven't seen that, oh my God, what a great movie.
Oh no, I've seen it.
And that whole ideal of taking something and lessening it through humor.
Right.
And we're seeing a lot of that with the Capitol assault.
But I think that they use that kind of caricature of Nazis in the beginning of the season as a correlation to what the Bureau of Oddities was. You know, to the detaining people because they're different, eliminating them because they pose a threat because they're different, that type of thing.
But the Bureau of Oddities was an actual threat, whereas old, turnkey Hitler was not.
But it was like a passing of the torch in the series.
Yes.
Like, old-timey Hitler is a joke in the series. And for a couple of the characters was not a joke.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
It was still a pretty fresh thing for them. But then you've got this Bureau of Oddities, which is actually, in the series, in the TV show, I'm not talking about actually real life. The Bureau of Oddities is actually a greater threat.
And it brings different characters in.
Yeah.
Because in completely different characters from the first couple that you have, that have issues with the Nazis.
Right. Well, and every once in a while
I'm sorry. I've mislabeled it. The Bureau of Oddities is what Niles started with. It's the Bureau of Normalcy.
Right.
The Bureau of Normalcy is the correlation to.
Right. And they're even willing to break their own rules, though, because they employed the Beard Hunter, who, even though his whole thing is wacky, ridiculous and wacky, and
he falls in line, though.
He does.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they use all of them because they kept pulling out Flex Mentallo too, and they just called him number 722. Or
Right,
whatever.
Right.
Oh, which brings me to another of my favorite side characters, Morally Corrupt.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Because the Beard Hunter ended up loving Danny the Street and staying there.
Well, because
just like
he
Morally Corrupted.
Right, because he was an outsider.
Right, yeah.
You know, and that's
But
what Danny
Morally
speaks
Corrupt,
to.
I was like,
Oh my
yes!
God. First of all, I love a really good drag queen name.
Oh my God. And that one is fucking phenomenal.
That one's fire.
Oh my
That
God.
one-
Yeah,
especially when you can work it into the rest of the plot.
Mm.
But yes.
No, that was perfect. But so when the Beard Hunter was chasing after Niles in the TV show and gets to, I'm assuming they had to find Danny the Street through that.
Right, and had to go because that was the same staircase that went down in the doll shop.
Yeah, I got a little confused about that part, to be honest, of which Niles was that he ran into.
Okay.
Did you guys understand that at all?
I did. So
Okay.
Niles is in the blank space at that time. And the blank
The
space
white space.
The white space.
The white space, sorry. Not the Taylor Swift song. He lives in the white space.
Mhm.
And the white space exists outside of where the Beard Hunter can even track. But his power works on genetics. So the closest thing that his power can find is Niles' daughter.
Right.
So
Oh,
that's
yeah, that
why
makes
it
sense.
brings
Yep, to the
it brings him to the door where Dorothy is, and that's why he turns around and sees the guardian spirit, for lack of a better term, that I think has now attached itself to Dorothy.
Okay, that's what threw
okay.
me off.
Yeah.
Was seeing Niles in the wheelchair,
Right. And I
not
don't
realizing
think,
it was a guardian spirit, just going, all right, there's some sort of disconnect here for me.
right. And I think that was an intentional misdirection until you get to the end of the show and think about it. Because I hadn't even really thought about that scene until you brought it up, and I was like, okay, well, working through the steps. And I think all the parts were there. You just have to, and I love that about shows that are like, we're not going to explain it. You're going to either,
figure it out.
either
or
you figure
don't.
it out or you don't, and you can let it
But
go.
you'll enjoy yourself.
Right. It'll still be a good, as we've brought up before, watch The Maltese Falcon, hugely famous as one of the greatest noir movies ever. The original murder.
It's
you
a
don't
murder
know who
mystery.
did it. You
and
don't know who did
doesn't
it.
get solved. Yep.
Yep. They never said who does the original murder. But you're still along for the journey, So anyway, second time this season I brought that up, but I think it's an important point. If your story is good enough, plot holes don't matter.
But is that a plot hole? That was intentional. I mean,
Right.
as far as, okay, we're not going to get on that tangent, but yeah.
But like the daughter, when Dorothy came, you find out about Dorothy.
Right?
The only thing I could think of was this is some Phantom of the Opera shit.
I'm
I'm not talking the musical, but more the movie musical,
Okay.
where it was just like, what the fuck is going on, and then you find out, well, I don't know how much you want to spoil that.
Well, you can spoil all of the show,
Yeah.
but none of the comics. So,
But then,
well, I mean-
you find out, he had Niles with the Sasquatch woman, forgetting her name. And it's just like,
I don't think she ever had a name.
Who?
The Sasquatch woman, the cave woman.
She did.
She
he
did.
said it at some point in time, and I just can't remember what it is now.
I don't know that he said her name. He called her something, though.
I don't think any of us are going to get it though. So.
Okay.
No,
probably
Moving on.
not.
probably not. I was going to say, in reference to your earlier point about using comedy to offset horrible things,
Right.
which happens regularly in this TV series. Probably my favorite one was the we're about to sit down to a torture scene with the background music being "I Saw the Sign."
Yep. Oh my God, do whatever you want to me. Just turn off the ace of fucking base.
Right.
Yeah. That was fantastic. And I felt that to my soul.
Right.
I mean, it made me appreciate the song a little bit more.
I had a little sister in the 90s, so I've had a lot of that song. She loved Ace of Base.
I'm sorry.
But what did you guys-
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. What did you guys think of the interaction between Cliff and when he finally runs into his daughter?
I was like, okay, this is another plot point. I did like that at no point does he ever tell her, I like that he just leaves the gold watch and that is his character arc. He doesn't need to have that relationship with her because he realizes that she's had a father, even though it is the person that he's been angry with this whole time that, has been banging his wife.
Yeah, there's plenty of people around that actually obviously loved and cared for
Her. Yeah.
Her and their relationship.
Yeah, the whole episode where he's outside. You guys watched the whole second season already?
Nope.
No, we have
I've
not.
touched the second season at all.
Oh man, okay.
Yeah. And I found out the cave woman, the proto woman,
Sure.
Mhm.
her name was Slava.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought he said it at some point in
Yes.
time.
Yeah. Also, looking at IMDb.
The D.
No,
The D?
at IMDb. I was like, because I was looking at just the top build cast, and they have April Bowlby, but in the top build cast, they're like, oh, she's Elastigirl. I'm like, who the fuck is Elastigirl?
They never call her Elastigirl.
Yeah.
It's Rita Farr.
Yeah.
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 Yep. Yeah.
And then,
in the comics, she was known as Elastigirl.
That's dumb.
I think
Because
it was,
in my mind, I was like, she's like.
Well, Marvel already
Swamp
took the
Girl.
Blob.
She's Swamp Girl.
Swamp Girl.
I don't know why, but because she got her powers doing the swamp
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Right.
Not from doing the swamp thing.
She did do the
I mean-
swamp thing.
That was like my comment.
He planted his
Last-
seed in her.
Oh.
She had seasonal allergies.
no.
That's how I'm going to describe relationships that only lasted 3 months.
Seasonal allergies.
Loki, got any other questions for us?
Nope, but
Anybody else on the panel? Oh, go ahead.
I was surprised when I was looking up some of the people, like Ezekiel, the cockroach.
Mm-hmm.
Is Curtis Armstrong?
Yeah.
It is. And I had to look up a couple people because the Rita Farr, April Bowlby,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, where the hell have I seen her before? And it was 2.5 Men TV show.
Oh my
Yeah, I was
God.
actually looking that up too because she was. What else did I say she was in? She was 2.5 Men and something else.
She was in How I Met Your Mother.
Oh yeah, she
for
was
like
in
4 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not recognize her from anything
Yeah,
else
well-
because I have not watched.
I will recognize Curtis Armstrong's voice in
Oh,
anything.
yeah,
and
absolutely.
I love that actor. And I was fortunate enough to meet him when I lived in Los Angeles, and Chris Hanel was working on something. And he's just a fascinating dude. Like he knows his role in kind of, TV and movie history, and he leans into it.
Like
So-
character actor.
Yeah, I mean,
space.
well, and he got his start as Booger, like in
Yeah.
Revenge of the Nerds. But because of that, people recognize his voice, so he does a lot of voice acting.
Mhm.
People recognize him as a nerd. So, I mean, he's shown up on Supernatural. He's shown up on like all of these different shows that he shows up, and you're like, I know what that character is.
Yeah. Well, and just to that, this is completely a tangent, but to that point, I think that character actors have a far bigger role than stars do. When you've got a character actor that nails that genre, that character type, and you start, this is a prime example, but they almost reach a status that, to me, I care more about those kind of actors who are, in the nooks and crannies that kind of are the hyper characterization of different personality types that I think are more interesting.
Well, and I was going to bring this up earlier when you mentioned it, but we were talking about Karen.
Mhm.
And one of my silly side projects to keep myself busy during the pandemic is I'm going through any of the top 50 rom-coms out of Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone did an article, top 50 rom-coms of all time, and I'd watched about half of them. So I'm watching the other ones, and I'm kind of doing Facebook reviews just to be like, oh, I watched this. And one of the ones that I watched was The Proposal, which is Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds. But you talk about character actors, and that one has Craig T. Nelson, Mary Steenburgen,
Virgin. Yeah.
Virgin, Oscar Nunez, and Malina Ackerman, like as just these whatever roles. I just watched Jennifer's Body recently. And you want to talk about
Can we go back to that?
Yeah.
I have never heard of that movie before you watch, which
Yeah.
isn't surprising. I
Right,
have
you're not
to.
a rom-com.
I have to preface that with not surprising because that's not my genre of movies. But that is a cast that I would absolutely see.
just
I mean,
check it out.
Yeah, I mean,
Betty White also is in that movie.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Was that the movie that had the line, I'm a kicker, and that's what it says in my chart?
Yes. No,
Okay.
no, Jennifer's Body was. Yeah, the next one that I watched.
Yeah.
I brought up Jennifer's Body and we went back to The Proposal. But Jennifer's Body, I mean, had like Adam Brody before anybody knew who who Anna Brody was, had Chris Pratt before anybody knew who Chris Pratt was. I mean, and it was like both of those movies were marketed in a way that I'm like, whatever. But I'm starting to get to the point where if Clancy Brown is in a fucking movie,
yeah,
I'm gonna watch that movie.
You have to see how he dies horribly in the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Right.
But it's like Jennifer's Body. I came in like halfway through that and watched it, and I'm like, God, this is so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. But then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, when I was in college, I used to love to watch like B horror movies, and
that's what that was set up
and
to be.
Well, yeah. And it was like a top budget movie trying to be a B horror movie, but then it was like, okay, it's just being a little too happy with itself, because it was like I thought it had a lot of elements of Cabin in the Woods, but it never got to that level. Yeah. And it wasn't as bad as it, like, I was just like, ugh.
It knew the movie that it was, and it was leaning into it. And that's what I appreciate. And if you can get a good movie that has all of those character actors like that, I mean, that's the thing is, J.K. Simmons was in Jennifer's Body with a horrible wig.
Yeah.
And once you see him, you're like, oh my God. Like, like in no other movie do they put a wig on J.K. Simmons. And if they do, they make sure it doesn't look this fucking bad.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is if you can get the right character actors and things,
right.
And I think this is Doom Patrol is a good example of that as well.
And I'm not, I could go further down the road with Jennifer's Body, and I'm not going to.
I hear you.
Yeah.
But that's the point is if you can get character actors are very important.
I agree. Absolutely.
To set your tone.
But I also like the fact that it feels like Doom Patrol is a movie about character actors.
Kind of.
And I think that I like that.
I can get behind that.
I really like it.
To the point that if Danny of the Street showed up in something else, I'd be like, oh, cool, it's Danny of the Street.
Yeah.
Like,
might have to stick around and watch some more.
Yeah.
We
love them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you guys were watching the Snow Globe episode, it might have just been me, but I was thinking Baron von Munchausen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nurnheim.
Yeah. That was like the first thing that came to my mind. I'm like, what the fuck? But also
a rose for a beautiful lady.
But also the Willoughby Kipling, played by Mark Shepard.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Shepard, another brilliant character actor.
Yeah, well, I was like, oh, wait, is this Constantine? Are we going to get Constantine in Doom Patrol?
Right.
No.
Almost.
Sort of. I mean, it was like the dime store version of Constantine.
It was Constantine mixed with Crowley from Supernatural.
Yeah, I've only seen the Constantine movie and the TV show, so I haven't read the comics. But I was kind of wondering if you guys read the comics, how much was this kind of a rip-off or a rip-on Constantine?
So this is an actual character. This guy, somewhere in DC, because I had looked it up before, I just didn't take notes on it. Somewhere somebody asked to use John Constantine, and DC said, no, we're doing something else with that character right now. You can't have him. So he created that guy and said, okay, fine. And he references knowing Constantine in other,
He did it in
the show.
It was just like, what did he say? Blonde-haired guy smokes too much?
Blonde-haired guy smokes too much, yeah. But that's the thing is there is a lot of that cross as you go through, even within the same company, because somebody's like, oh, I want to use this person. And they're like, no. And they're like, okay. There was an example of this when I was LARPing, when I was running stuff, is there's this whole thing called the Midnight Circus, which is a bunch of freaks. And I went to the organization that held it. And I said, hey, I want to use this for a plot. And they were like, no. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to, if you don't allow this, make the exact same characters and change one letter in every one of their names. And then that will be my property and not yours. So think about this, because I'm going to ask you one more time, can I have the original thing? And they were like, no. So that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And there's examples of that throughout history or throughout comics, throughout fiction, throughout all sorts of things. How many different versions of Sherlock Holmes are there?
Well, it's like if you watch Lovecraft Country.
Right.
They don't talk about, they don't talk about Arkham, they talk about Artem.
Right. Well, which was actually the original Arkham. But yes. I mean, that's just my nerdery coming out. But yeah, I mean, you can change one letter of things and it's your property, you know? So that's interesting to me that somebody along the line wanted, and Constantine before, I want to say before the 2000s, was never even like a character that was like valued.
That was not, well, it was never a character that was going to hit mainstream media.
Right,
you know, because you can't have somebody that is that, like, I don't want to say willfully negligent of their...
That much of a dick is really what I'd say. I mean, Loki, you right there?
Yeah,
I mean,
between the TV show and the movie, yeah, he's a dick.
Oh, he's even worse in the comics. Go back to our third fucking episode of the show was Hellblazer, and we talk about it, and we talk about both the movie, the show, and the comic. And by far, the most of a dick that John Constantine is in the comic books. You have to lighten him up for everything else.
Well, the animated one was
that's true,
almost as bad.
Yeah, I mean, you if you have John Constantine, or if you're friends with John Constantine, just expect to die brutally and haunt him forever.
I mean, I'm gonna haunt people anyways, so
you're gonna haunt me.
Probably.
I'm gonna come up with a lot more of these really nice things to say to you then to ward off the spirit.
That might do it.
All right, any other questions or points anyone wants to make?
I do not have any more questions. I just kind of had like the what the fuck moments.
I do like those.
So bring them up.
I'm working on it.
Oh, I can tell you because I stared in abject horror at the screen when we were finishing yesterday. The Whiskers Ezekiel makeout scene was something that I've never...
As just a simple way to transfer Cliff from one kaiju to another.
Yep. Something that I never needed to see. A cockroach and a mouse making out.
I'm just vamping here.
Don't lie. That is your kink, Josh. Totally your kink.
Also, do rats really have that long of a tongue? Wow.
Good question. Not when I'm going to research it all.
So since you haven't
in relation to body,
right?
You haven't watched the second season at all.
Nope, not at all. And we don't really generally discuss second seasons on the show.
Okay, fair enough. Because some of the stuff was, when you watch the second season, you'll just be like, oh, fucking Loki, I know what you're talking about. You'll just call me up and just be like, what the fuck?
Well,
mental note.
I do love that at least once an episode, Cliff does yell, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yes, I really do like that.
Because again, Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
I enjoy the fact that he actually just said, what the fuck, I'll do this.
Well, I mean,
but he always has been fun in his roles. You know, in Seal Man, I mean, if they couldn't have brought it to him and he couldn't have looked at it and go, you know, this is a fucking serious role that'll get me an Oscar.
Right. Or George's the Jungle, man.
Oh, God, I forgot about that train wreck.
Oh, my God. It was so good. John Cleese doing the voice of a gorilla.
What?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Somebody needed a payday.
Well, I mean, you're at that point.
Money's money.
I was in Monty fucking Python. I'd do whatever I want. Like,
right, but come on.
All right, so Loki,
yes.
You have continued watching the show, but will you continue watching the show and reading this comic?
I have actually looked up to get the second volume, which I was probably going to pick up tomorrow.
Nice.
And continue to read the comic, hoping that it's as bizarre and actually gives you some answers for the first comic on what the hell just went on and kind of where all these characters tie in. And I was kind of hoping to see more character development, or not character development, but more in the graphic novel. They really didn't, we talked about it, that they didn't bring Jane in that much. And I was kind of hoping that the next one would have a little more of what was going on with Jane.
That's exactly where I am. I'm going to keep reading this because I want to know, I want to see Jane, you know, and they mention Rita a couple times and then don't go and get her. So I'm hoping that there's more Rita in the next one as well.
Yeah, I was really hoping that they'd have some, pages about the underground more, or, you know, about the underground, and kind of maybe a little more background story than what the TV show had about what was going on, you know, and about the whole underground in general. Because I think that was, to me, the most interesting part of the whole show was the underground.
Yeah,
and just
I like
the
that
way the
part
personalities interacted with each other, from the train conductor bringing the primary person up to the consciousness, you know, to all the background characters, the driller, you know, the nun, the three hags?
The sisters.
The sisters. Yep.
You know, I thought that was just such a great concept for having the personalities like that.
Jen, do I even need to ask?
Yes, because something that we didn't touch on at all was I'm going to continue to read because I want to know who has the meats.
Arby's.
Oh God.
Arby's has the meats.
No. Nope. And I am not going to say any more than that. If you are curious about meat, read the comic.
Oh my God. You.
I got to see more of the comic just because I got to see more of this like organic Furby, this Teddy Ruxpin.
Baby Cthulhu.
Yeah, Baby Cthulhu.
Baby Cthulhu reads you bedtime stories.
I do want to see if they actually bring in Jane and Rita, and I'm not really concerned if they bring in Cyborg or not. But any other characters that they bring in, I would definitely watch season 2 just because I want to see if there's more Flex Mentallo.
Yes.
So if your date gets canceled tonight, it's season 2 of Doom Patrol time.
Might be.
But we don't hope that your date gets canceled.
It's true.
But yeah, I mean, I'll definitely keep reading. I'll keep watching.
Loki, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
This has been
you're
awesome.
welcome. Thank you.
Do you have any websites or anything you want to plug?
Not at this time, unfortunately.
Okay. Once we get more of your artwork and photographs up on the net to buy, we will be happy to plug you.
Yeah, actually, whatever you have behind you, I'd like to see more of.
Oh, I did not do that, but it's
it looks similar to something that you've done in the past, though.
Yeah, it's the same style.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually Mr. Brainwash was the artist who did something with Banksy.
Oh,
like
nice.
a movie.
Yeah.
And
was that Exit Through the Gift Shop?
yes.
Okay.
And so that's where I saw that, and it's I don't know. Well, obviously the people that are listening can't see it, but it says "Life is Beautiful," and it's got a photo or a spray paint stencil of Billie Holiday on it. So I love jazz, so that's why I picked it up.
And a crow.
There's not a crow in there.
What did I see behind you that had
Billie
a crow
Holiday.
on it?
Oh, it's Billie Holiday.
No, turn on your video on.
Okay.
Oh my God. Hold on. Let's finish this and then we'll go through that.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Loki, thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, join us next time when we will be doing Over the Hedge. I want my goodies!
Okay, I don't know what this is. And I'm looking forward to our guests who will help me through this.
Ken and Regan. All right.
Ken and Regan.
And until then, take it away, Vandello.
Come with me, I'll tell a story that you might have heard before. Graphically novel, but the same old trouble. Villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same. Do 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 do. Come at me, and I'll show you something you ain't never seen before. Right or wrong, oh can't we all just get along? My mask is no different than yours. Pretty pictures on the screen, but nothing's ever as it seems. Do 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 do. You don't want to see my back.